Welcome to the Ultimate Exam Review Explainer. If you're staring down a massive accounting test right now and feeling, well, maybe just a little bit overwhelmed by all the numbers, you are in exactly the right place. Let's jump right in and translate those raw, kind of dry bookkeeping concepts into real exam-ready knowledge.
I want you to think of me as your personal, highly caffeinated professor today. My whole goal here is to demystify the core mechanics of accounting so you can strut into that final test with absolute, total confidence. Look, we're not just going to sit here and memorize textbook definitions, right? We're going to learn the actual language of business and show you exactly how to translate real-world scenarios into absolutely perfect test answers.
Here is our game plan for today. We'll hit 1. The core accounting equation. 2. Debit and credit rules. 3. 5 practice transactions. 4. The accounting flow. 5. Exam pitfalls and strategy. And finally, 6. A final review checklist.
All right, Section 1. The core accounting equation. This is the inescapable law of accounting.
So the absolutely crucial point to remember here is that everything a company owns, its assets, things like cash, inventory, or buildings, has to equal exactly how it was funded. And honestly, there are really only two ways to fund a business. It's either through outside obligations, which are your liabilities, or through owner funding, which is equity. This equation right here, it must always balance. Literally no exceptions. If your assets grow, either your liabilities or your equity must grow right along with them.
Moving on to Section 2, Debit and Credit Rules. We're looking at the dual impact of every transaction.
Okay, so here's the complete matrix of debit and credit rules. Notice that very clear divide. Assets and expenses follow one logic. They increase with a debit and they decrease with a credit. Meanwhile, your liabilities, equity, and income, they do the exact opposite. They increase with a credit and decrease with a debit. That is your entire mechanical rulebook right there in one simple table.
Now, to really lock this in, I want you to use the mnemonic IDEA. Seriously, the literal second you sit down for your exam, write IDEA at the very top of your scratch paper. It simply stands for to increase a debit, look at expenses and assets. Once you know that, everything else, liabilities, equity, income, has to be the exact reverse. It's a lifesaver. With this one single word, you can reverse engineer literally any tricky multiple choice question they decide to throw at you.
Which brings us to Section 3, 5 practice transactions. This is our step-by-step exam practicum.
Now listen up, because this is the real meat of this explainer. Before we tackle specific scenarios, here is a foolproof 3-step method you need to apply to every single problem. Step 1. Identify the 2 accounts impacted. Step 2. Determine if each account is increasing or decreasing. And Step 3. Apply the IDEA rule to assign debits and credits. Whatever you do, do not skip a step, or you're totally going to risk flipping your debits and credits.
Okay, let's look at Scenario 1. A business owner deposits $30,000 cash into the bank to start the business. Applying our method, we spot 2 accounts, cash and owner's equity. Cash is an asset, and it's increasing, right? So based on IDEA, that's a debit of $30,000. Owner's equity is also increasing. Since equity is the opposite of an asset, an equity increase is a credit of $30,000. Boom, perfectly balanced. Moving to Scenario 2, the company buys furniture for $10,000 on credit. So our 2 accounts this time are furniture and accounts payable. We increase our furniture asset with a debit of $10,000, but wait, since we haven't actually paid the cash yet and we owe money, our liabilities are also increasing, so we record that with a credit to accounts payable for $10,000. All right, Scenario 3. Let's say some time passes and the company settles that $10,000 amount payable for the furniture. When it's finally time to pay up, we have to reduce that liability. And remember, a decrease in a liability requires a debit to accounts payable for $10,000. Simultaneously, we are parting with our hard-earned cash. To decrease an asset like cash, we apply a credit of $10,000. Notice how that liability we just created in Scenario 2 is now completely cleared out to zero. It's like a giant puzzle fitting together.
Now for Scenario 4. The company pays $1,200 in cash for building rent. Rent introduces our very first expense. Applying Step 1, our 2 accounts are rent expense and cash. Using our trusty IDEA mnemonic, increase debit expense assets. We instantly know an expense increase is an automatic debit. So, debit rent expense $1,200, and since cash is flowing out of the business, our asset is decreasing, which gives us a credit of $1,200. Simple as that.
Okay, scenario 5. Pay really close attention here because this is a classic, absolute textbook exam curveball. We sell 5 bicycles for $4,000 cash, but the original cost was $2,500. You can totally expect a complex question on this specific flow. Selling inventory always requires 2 entries to satisfy the matching principle. First, record the income. Debit cash for what you received, $4,000, and credit sales revenue, $4,000. But hold on, you can't stop there. Simultaneously, you have to record the expense of the inventory physically leaving your hands. So, entry B, debit cost of sales, which is an expense, for $2,500, and credit your inventory asset for $2,500. Do not let them trick you into doing just a single entry here.
All right, Section 4, the accounting flow. This takes us from raw data to financial statements.
Now that we've mastered the localized journal entries, let's zoom out. All these little debits and credits actually have a final destination. The life cycle of a transaction follows a very strict path. Step 1, journal entries, which is the chronological record we just practiced. Step 2, the general ledger, where they are summarized by account. Step 3, the trial balance, which is a master list of all those final balances. And Step 4, the financial statements, like the balance sheet and income statement. On an exam, you might very well be asked to order these exact steps, so keep this flow in mind.
Section 5, Exam Pitfalls and Strategy. Let's look at where students lose points and how to study smarter.
Listen, here is where students typically get tripped up, so we need to address these conceptual traps head-on. Your exam will almost certainly try to trick you with cash timing. They love to give you a scenario where a service was provided in January, but the cash wasn't actually paid until March. Always remember the accrual principle. It dictates that you record the transaction in the period it occurs, even if unpaid. You record the electricity expense when the electricity is used in January, not when you finally pay the bill a month later. That's the cash basis trap. Don't fall for it.
Also, when you're prioritizing your study time, you have to clearly distinguish between your financial statements. Test questions constantly try to blur them together. Just remember, the balance sheet is a single snapshot of financial position at a single point in time, kind of like a photograph taken on December 31st, whereas the income statement is a summary of performance over a period of time. Think of it more like a video covering a full 12-month year.
Finally, Section 6, Final Review Checklist. These are the core principles to memorize tonight.
Before you sit down for that final test, you need to make sure these foundational principles are totally locked in. This is your core checklist. First, the accrual principle. Record when incurred. Next, the matching principle. Always match revenues with related expenses, which is exactly why we did that double entry for the bicycles earlier. Then, historical cost. Record assets at purchase price, never at market value. The going concern. Always assume the business will continue operating indefinitely. And lastly, materiality, meaning trivial amounts can be expensed immediately. You know, you don't need to depreciate a $25 calculator over 10 years. Just expense the whole shebang right away. Memorize these 5 and you'll easily scoop up free points in the multiple choice section.
You are absolutely going to ace this exam with these structured mechanics, I have no doubt about it. But here is the real question to ponder as you move forward in your career, past the late night studying and past the final grades. You've mastered the mechanics, but can you read the story a business is telling through its financial statements? Accounting is really just the language. The financial statements are the story. What story will you uncover next? Best of luck on your exam. You've totally got this.